All right, let's see who comes. Hello, my bud. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started in just a minute. Just trying to move some stuff around so I can get it. So if you're in here and you feel like talking, just introduce yourself. I would love to see who actually joins and who watches it later. Let's see. Oh yeah, one more thing. Before... Hey Kimberly, hey James and Andrew. Can y'all hear me okay? Rue's here too, obviously. She likes to bark at inopportune times. All right, cool. I was just making sure that my earpiece is working because I can't hear myself other than what I'm doing now. Oh, hi, Melanie. Hi, Zoe. Welcome. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Tani, and I am with Nature to Go. Somebody's going to bark. Yes, somebody is going to bark, and I have a cat, so hopefully she doesn't knock over everything that I have. Hi, Addison. It's so great to see everybody, or not see everybody. Y'all seeing me, right? All right. So today we're going to talk and meet about, we're going to talk and meet a toad today. Toads are so cool, and I don't get to show him off as much in my programs. So I figured I'd do this. He is a very cool dude. You have two, you have a dog too. They do like to bark whenever we are trying to, especially if I'm talking and she thinks I'm talking to myself. So she's like, she gets all offended and I want to talk, bark and talk too. All right, so we're going to get going. And let me see if I could get him. So I'm not going to take him out just yet, just because he doesn't really like to be held uh, for a very long time. So I'm gonna take him out at the end, but he is right here for everybody to see. This is Henry, and Henry is a Colorado river toad. So he's a lot bigger than the ones that we have here that are native. But depending on where you're watching from, you might have these in your backyard, which is really cool and a little scary at the same time because he's quite large. All right. So we're going to go over what a toad looks like. So we've already seen Henry, and you've probably caught toads or seen toads around your house. So we're going to go over their key features. So toads and frogs are biologically very similar. They fall under the same class. They just don't fall under the same like species, of course, or a genus. But they all fall under Anura. So he is pretty cool. Now, the common feature with them is that they do not have slimy skin, and we're going to talk about that. So, frogs and toads are a little bit different by just like touching them or seeing them, right? So, frogs you kind of generally see up high for the most part or up in the water, and toads they like to be damp sometimes, and but they, for the most part, can be in drier areas, and that's fine. That's what they are adapted to. Now, with a frog, they're going to be slimy, and that's because they need to stay near the water. And but toads, on the other hand, they're going to have slimy, well, not slimy, they're going to have leathery skin. And with that leathery skin, a lot of people think that they don't breathe through their skin like frogs do. So I'm going to catch him for a moment. He might use the bathroom on me. So, as you can see, he's got kind of leathery skin. I could touch him, and don't worry, my hands are clean. I clean them with a special type of soap that doesn't leave a film on there. But whenever you do catch toads and frogs, you want to be very careful that you don't hold them for very long because they absorb everything through their skin. Did he pee on me? Or he's in a container with a whole bunch of stuff, but they do pee. The So you can touch him. He's really kind of leathery. He's kind of resumed, kind of happy with his fate there. He does not call though. He is not fully grown. Whenever I did get him, he was about half the size of what he is now. So he is a big boy. Generally, in the wild, they live between 5 and 10 years, but in human care, they could live much longer. They could live to be almost 20 or so. So I'm not exactly sure how old he is. Now, out west, they can be considered a pest. But they're also found in the pet trade fairly easily. But if you do get a toad that you want to keep as a pet, just make sure that is captive born. You don't want to take anything out of the wild, just because that gives them a lot of that puts off a lot of stress on them. They might stop eating, and they just don't know how to adjust as well. So make sure if you do get one that you know their requirements, that you know what they eat, what kind of, if they need some sort of a special substrate, how much water do they need, how much humidity levels. There's a lot of things going on with these guys that uh, they seem so simple, but they require a lot of, of care. All right. So the most common toad species around here in Louisiana is going to be your Gulf Coast toad. But we have several different species of toads around, and even one that looks like a frog. But, well, he's called a toad, but he's really a frog, and that's going to be your narrow-mouthed toad. And there are a type of frog species. Now, to keep him kind of calm, he's kind of just settled in right now. He's kind of looking at me. He's like, hey, you're the one that feeds me. Now with him and toads in general, they're going to be a little slim. Well, toads are going to be fat bodied, and then a few of us, probably can relate for that. He's got short, stubby legs, so their legs aren't as long, especially those back legs, aren't as long as a frog's, and then their front legs are short and stubby too, and you can kind of see his fingers and stuff there. All right, so the biggest thing is, are they poisonous? Most toads are poisonous. So see these little puffy little pillows right behind their eyes and right over their ears, which this is their eardrum right here. This is how they hear. But this little pillow thing right here, that is a gland that holds a bufotoxin. And whenever they get stressed, they'll secrete a milky substance, and that substance can be very irritating to predators, and it could also be irritating to us as well. Uh, he doesn't push out his toxins or anything like that. He's a little bit different than the toads that we have that are native here, but he's also got one. If you could see this little, let's see if I could get it, this little bump right here, this little ridge, that's also another toxin gland, just in case. So they use these toxins to keep predators from eating them. So they are not venomous. So the difference between venom and poison is that the venom is injected into you by like a snake, or there's some lizards that are venomous that they can actually puncture you with their little teeth. And then there's poison. So poison is usually ingested or absorbed through your skin. So think of like poison ivy. If you're allergic to that, if you touch it and it brushes up against your skin and you don't clean it right away, you'll get that rash. And it's the same thing with these guys right here. Let's see. So cool facts. These guys go through the same stage of life as frogs. So they are born in the water. They are tadpoles, and then they come out looking like this handsome man right here. The thing is that most of their water sources are called vernal water sources, and that just means that those water sources are only available certain times of the year. So they take advantage of that, and their babies grow pretty fast. And then once that water has been all evaporated, they are good to go until they need to spawn and have more babies. They typically do not like to be handled as as especially wild ones. They don't typically like to be handled. But if you do grab them, just like I said, just wash your hands. Don't grab one. And this goes for all animals in general. You don't want to, making sure he didn't pee on me. He has not peed on me yet. We are good. But in general, whenever you touch any animals, whether it's one of these guys that may be toxic or just an animal in general, you want to wash your hands anyway because you don't know. Some animals carry salmonella and things like that, so you want to make sure you wash your hands really well. There are over 300 toad species. So these guys are found pretty much everywhere except, what is it? Madagascar, Antarctica. Oh, there he goes. He peed on me. Awesome. I put some newspaper down so just in case I am prepared. And so they are found pretty much all over the world. There are certain places, and I believe Australia is one of them too. They have cane toads, but cane toads are an invasive species. Cane toads are from South America, and they are very invasive in Florida and stuff right now too. Those guys you don't want to, they're very toxic. So if you do live in Florida or you go visit Florida, don't gra- don't grab one because they will definitely their toxic is a little bit more potent than everything else. Thank you. This is not the first time that I've been peed on by a toad. And since we're going to talk about that, let's talk about, do you think that you can get warts from toads? So go ahead and answer in the comments if you think that you could get warts if a toad pees on you. Anybody? No. Yep, you're right. So no, we do not get warts from toad pee, and that's just a myth that is surrounded by them. Warts are caused by a virus, and these guys don't carry that virus. So it just so happens that somebody thought that correlation equals causation. So that means whatever happened to them is their cause of their wart, and it kind of spread as a myth or folklore. Now, a group of toads is called a knot. These guys are um, they're pretty solitary. They don't like getting together with other toads unless they are looking for a mate. But if you happen to see a group of them, uh, they are a whole bunch of them are called a knot. Let's see, what else? He is like, I'm going to put him down for a second and wipe my hands because I came prepared with some paper towels. So if you do, how can we be toad friendly or keep toads away? So we're going to start with the toad friendly. If you want to encourage toads around your house, especially in the garden, they make great gardeners' friends. They like to eat all the small bugs in there. They also eat slugs and snails. So some gardeners want to encourage them to be around, or if you live in the South, like I do, we if we turn on our outdoor light at any time, there's always bugs around. So they like to come out and feast on those. So if you're not a very big bug fan, you can set up things like little hidey holes in damp corners of your garden. So, and you can do a toad abode. So toad abodes can be anything that they can get wet, and they have a hole for the toad to hide in during the day because toads are mostly nocturnal. And so you just make little corners more welcoming for that. Now, to keep toads away, you're going to do the exact opposite. So you're going to discourage bugs if you like to plant gardens and stuff. I love gardens. I have a native pollinator garden in my front yard and in my backyard. And if I wanted to keep toads out of it, I would try to keep corners that would be damp. I would try to keep those dry. I would not turn on my light at night, which we try not to anyway, just because it saves on electricity. And plus, I don't want anybody coming to my house late at night anyway. So I only turn it on whenever I'm expecting somebody, like a delivery person. But other than that, I don't turn that on. And then I wouldn't spray pesticides, but I would encourage other predators. So there's lizards, there's little garden snakes like ribbon snakes and garter snakes that do just as good of a job at getting those pests, those garden pests that we don't like, and even things like wasp. Now, hear me out. So wasp are pollinators until they start having babies, and whenever those babies are little grubs, they go, and those grubs or those baby wasps need lots and lots of protein. So that's whenever they turn into predators and they start plucking off different insects and stuff to take them back for their babies. So if you're like me, I kind of live and let live with all of those creatures, and they don't seem to bother us very much as long as we don't bother them. Now, with dogs are something else. So our toads here are not very toxic, especially like we have our Gulf Coast toad, we have an oak toad, spadefoot, but the most common one that we'll see is going to be that Gulf Coast toad. And they do have a bufotoxin, so they have a gland just like Henry here, but they're not as big, and their toxin is not as right as bad. But sometimes they act as a hallucinogen, and different animals figure this out, especially dogs. Dogs will like bark at it, and then they'll get to where they lick it, and they can become kind of addicted to that. So I did have a dog one time way back when, and Kimberly might remember my boxer, and we had to really stay on top of her because she wanted to go outside and find toads and lick one. Yes. So it was mainly, so I didn't discourage toads because of that, but I did have to kind of break that habit and get her, like if we took her outside, we actually did a little bit more to distract the dog, so where she would leave the toads alone. Let's see, what other. Now, do older toads battle with other toads to protect their family? Toads are territorial, so they will battle each other if one happens to come into another territory. But for the most part, they leave each other alone. They're very solitary, so they don't have families. They will lay their eggs. Now, some of them would, some toads, and I generalize with this, but some toads and frogs do show parental care, and they take care of their tadpoles. But for the most part, generally, they just have, lay their eggs in that vernal pond, and they just leave, and they don't worry about one another. So they're not territorial in that aspect. But and they also want to stay away from each other because smaller frogs are very vulnerable to, or smaller toads are vulnerable to bigger toads. So like Henry right here, which I think he's ready for round two. Henry is he would eat a smaller toad if he was allowed. He eats, so toads can eat anything that fits in their mouth. Same thing with frogs. And so see how big his mouth is. His mouth is almost as wide as my finger. So he could fit even like a small mouse in there. We have bullfrogs that eat that are native here that eat birds, but they'll also eat, like if there's a little frog that or toad that hops around in front of them, they will surely eat him. So these guys are ambush predators. They don't go out of their way to hunt a specific prey item, but they will eat others. So it's kind of imperative and kind of a life-saving manner that these guys not be social. They just take advantage of everything. Now, is that a real bush behind me? No, it's a really cool uh, it's a really cool background. So before I started doing Nature to Go on my own, I did uh, I did virtual classes with the facility that I worked at, and this backdrop right here was really cheap, and so I took it with me because it's mine. So it's very cool, and I like bringing the outdoors inside. Uh, do y'all have any other questions about them or about toads in general? They are fun. Now they do breathe through their skin, just like frogs do. They're, and usually that's why you hear why frogs are wet. But these guys absorb everything through their skin. So I like to refer to them as indicator species. They indicate whenever something environmentally goes wrong. And why is he cute? I don't know. A lot of people don't think they're cute. A lot of people really think that, unless it's furry with four legs, that, it doesn't have any business being cute. But he has four legs. He's just not furry. He is very cute. I think so too. Do y'all have any other questions about them? Those people are wrong. Yes, I believe that those people are wrong as well. As you know, I love the unlovable, or what seems to be the unlovable, and you've seen all of my critters at one time or another. So about his eyes. So his eyes are really cool. And let me pick him up again so you can see him. So his eyes are kind of, they kind of, his pupil goes all the way across and they're kind of horizontal. He's like, want me to let him go. I'll let him go in a minute. He's been such a good sport. And so they're mostly nocturnal. And the reason why their pupils are shaped the way they are is so that they have a very broad view about what's going on. So these guys like to sit and wait. And this gives them a good vantage point to where they can pretty much see almost all the way in front of them, and then a good bit almost behind them as well. And you'll see the shape of their eyes be kind of replicated throughout the animal kingdom. So things like goats and sheep, and it seems to be like a lot of prey items will do that. But he's also a prey item as well. So not only is he a predator, he falls low on that kind of in that mid range on that trophic scale that we have for the food chain. So the really cool thing about their eyes is that these guys don't have any teeth. So whenever they eat something, they have to swallow it whole. And then they don't have any throat muscles. So what they do to swallow is that they'll push their eyeballs their into their skull, and then and then they swallow like that. And so you'll always see. So if you've ever if you've ever followed me on, I do a lot of TikToks and stuff like that. I have a frog, a white tree frog, and I show him eating all the time because he's a blast. What can eat him since he has bufotoxin? There's a few animals that can eat him. So there's, you'll have different snakes that'll eat him, uh, especially, well, not him in general, but there are snakes that will eat him. But mostly things like anything that could eat around it and don't have to eat him whole. So things like raccoons, there's coyote, uh, there's hawks, different different animals as long as they can pick around them. Now there are some snakes that eat toads and frogs, and especially toads. That's going to be like your garter snakes, and those guys are really cool because they'll absorb that toxin inside, and that snake itself will become poisonous as well. So they will store that poison that they've absorbed from eating those toads into their bodies, and that usually kind of makes other predators kind of steer clear of the garter snakes. So it's a really cool uh, little fact, I think, anyway, especially whenever we start talking about snakes. Let's see, what else is that? How long is a snake poisonous? It's going to be, the snake is going to be poisonous for a while. And just remember, poison means that if you ingest something or absorb through your skin, that's what you would happen. So I wouldn't eat any garter snakes, but usually the snakes hold that poison in for a good little while. But they constantly will eat toads and stuff like that, so they will. It always gets replenished. But there's some animals that once it goes up that, and we could talk more about food chains, but usually whenever something goes up the trophic level like that, you will not be eating those things. I agree. And just because I just have a heart, I love them so much. It's kind of like whenever people don't want to eat chickens, or I love chickens, but not as much as I love snakes. So I would not. And I know you don't want to eat them for different reasons than me, and it's totally understandable. No, so I wouldn't eat. Yeah, but yeah, I love snakes, and I've never tried snake, but if you ever stick around at a program, there's usually an older gentleman that will say something about eating snakes and how yummy they are, or something of that nature. So people are interesting. So, any more questions? This short little program went by very fast. I had a lot of fun talking with all of y'all, and I hope to do them a little bit more. If you have seen my animals and you want me to feature one in particular for my next one, just let me know. I have, and if you don't know, if you go to my website and you go under Our Animals, you'll see a big list of who's who. Um, and if you don't know what type is what, because I think I'm still working on putting their species name underneath the pictures, um, you could just screenshot it and say, hey, I would love if you would go into more depth about those. Axolotls, 3 votes for axolotls. I would love to feature Mochi. Now, Mochi, I won't be able to handle at all, so she'd be just in a tank purely because she can't come out of the water for very long at all. But I would definitely, I can feature Mochi. I vote for all. I probably will get eventually through all of them. I have about 30 different types of animals, and that are not domestic. Well, except dogs and cats, but those are not on my list. I have some domestic mammals that I use for programs, like a ferret, and stuff like that. All right. Well, thank y'all very much for joining me. I appreciate it so much, and hopefully we'll get that next one on my calendar. And if y'all have any other questions, y'all feel free to message me, or you can comment in this video even after we finish, and I'll come through there and answer anything else. Thank y'all. I enjoy it. Can I see the axolotl? Maybe next, so next time I'll feature the axolotl. She's in her tank right now in my animal room, and my animal room is not where my office is. So, but thank you very much. I hope y'all all have a great day. Bye, guys.